yadi dvandvārāme jagati viṣaya-vyagra-hṛdaye vivikte nirdvandvo viharati kṛtī śānta-hṛdayaḥ tataḥ pītvā prajñā-rasam amṛtavat tṛpta-hṛdayo viviktaḥ saṁsaktaṁ viṣaya-kṛpaṇaṁ śocati jagat. Saundarananda, Canto 14, verse 51. And I'm going to tell you the secret of this verse, and the secret, for me, the absolute central secret of all Zen practice. And it's in the word that appears twice in this verse, viviktaḥ. It appears in the locative vivikte, which means in seclusion, and in the nominative singular masculine viviktaḥ, which describes the practitioner as secluded, or as I've translated it, separately, an adverb, separately. See, we can think of separateness in a non-empty way as having to do with either a state of unity or a state of division. That's how we think of separateness in a non-empty way. And on the surface, this verse it's the Buddha's words, and the Buddha is kind of inviting us to think about the problem of separateness or oneness. You see, it's an ironic thing. Vivikta means separateness. So how does that fit into the whole Buddha scheme, in which the point is not to be divided, but to be undivided, to be sincere, to be free of conflict? The resolution, of course, is emptiness. So, in light of emptiness, the meaning of vivikta is not separation as understood in a non-empty way. It's separation as a direction. That's a secret. And I'm demonstrating that now. Definitely I'm demonstrating it. But unfortunately, you won't understand what I'm demonstrating unless you pick up your own fucking spade and send your own fucking knees forwards and away, as I mentioned the other day. It's the only way. You can't get it from me. In an Alexander lesson, that's the closest you'll get from getting it from somebody else, if it's a teacher who knows the score. But it's more useful to dig it out for yourself anyway, not be reliant on anybody else. That's the point. Knees, forwards and away. That's my starting point every morning. Let's see what happens in a friendly way, sending the knees forwards and away. And if I sound unfriendly saying that, it's not unfriendliness. It's resolution, determination. It's confidence that I know what the fuck I'm talking about after more than 40 years of making this effort. And whether there's anybody else in the world of Zen or the world of Buddhism that understands it so clearly, I very much doubt. Because I started early, and from the age of 35, started Alexander teacher training, and doing that every day, teaching the Alexander technique every day while sitting in full lotus and studying the ancient texts. I can tell you without any doubt that sending the knees forwards and away is absolutely vital. But what you get from sending your knees forwards and away is what they call in Alexander work staying back in your back. But in light of emptiness, what's happening in your back totally dependent on the biggest muscles, the most powerful muscles in the body, which can knock-erate your back unless you're controlling them, telling them what to do, telling them what you want. And what we want is separation. In all kinds of ways, physically, emotionally, socially. We want separation. We want seclusion. Even if we're thinking the 8 thoughts of a great person, there's a kind of a sense of knees forwards and away brings you to a state where each thought is isolated. It's not noisy. It's not distracted by anything. I cannot emphasize enough the importance of knees forwards and away. Okay, so with that in mind, here's the English translation. If in a world that delights in duality and is at heart distracted by objects, he roves in seclusion, free of duality, a man of action, his heart at peace, then he drinks the essence of wisdom as if it were the deathless nectar, and his heart is filled. Separately, he sorrows for the clinging, object-needy world. So, again, if I relate this verse to particular Alexander experience, I think of lying on the teaching table, or couch as she called it, of Marjorie Barlow, who was the niece of F.M. Alexander. And to me, she was like a grandmother figure as well. I've always had trouble with mother figures and sister figures, but I get on well with women who have got like the compassion and wisdom of my 2 grandmothers. So I never had any problems with Marjorie. And she didn't have a problem with me either. I remember telling her once, it seemed like somebody thought, somebody treated me as if I was rather common, something like that. And she said, "You're all right." She was very good at building confidence. She would never say, what she would say as I was leaving at the end of a lesson was, "You are going well, you are going well." Again, that's wisdom in light of emptiness. It's not that you are in a state of rightness or you are such and such a person. You're going in the right direction is what she was saying. You are going well. That was her encouragement. So the right direction, in Alexander terms, we say, let the neck be free, to let the head go forward and up, to let the back lengthen and widen, sending the knees forwards and away. And so often the knees forward and away is regarded as an afterthought. But no, it's not. Certainly not if you spend a lot of time sitting in full lotus. You realise it's not an afterthought. It's absolutely fundamental. And then you might ask, well, why isn't it they're mentioning it more in the Pali Suttas? Well, it is if you know what to look for. Ujum kayam panidaya parimukam satim upatapetva. Those are a stock phrase in the Pali Suttas. Ujum, upward, upright. Kayam, body. Panidaya, direct the body up. But then he says, parimukam, to the fore, forward. Satim, remembering, thinking. Upatapetva, having established, having stationed, thinking, remembering, to the fore. Okay, so you're sitting in lotus, and the Buddha's asking you to establish some kind of thinking, remembering, to the fore. Well, what's to the fore when you're sitting in lotus? Your knees. It's the same direction. The Buddha's saying, in Pali, he's saying what Alexander said in English, knees forwards and away. In Pali, that's parimukam satim upatapetva. So, if you look on my blog to help you work on yourself, I'll provide a link to it there down below. This is what I recite every morning for my own benefit. Let's see what happens in a friendly way. sending the knees forwards and away. Knees forwards and away, like asking one's best friend, not much, alpecia. Knees forwards and away, a sense of being content, samtushti, to stay back in one's own back, letting a separation happen. Praviveka, separation, praviveka, seclusion, separation, letting a separation happen. Knees forwards and away, nothing more than a wish, but a persistent one, virya, that won't take no for an answer. Knees forwards and away, thinking, but not as people understand thinking. Non-thinking, hishiryo. Kind thinking, as a letting happen, remembering what we want to happen. Knees forwards and away, towards enjoying the sovereignty of golden sitting in samadhi. Knees forwards and away, embodied transcendent wisdom of not clinging. Knees forwards and away, nishprapancha, not othering, just abiding in emptiness. Okay, so what I expressed there is that knees, the link, the connection of knees forwards and away with every one of the 8 thoughts of the great person. They're all there. If you sit in lotus, send the knees forwards and away. That's it. The 8 thoughts are there. Yadi dvandvārāme jagati viṣaya-vyagra-hṛdaye vivikte nirdvandvo viharati kṛtī śānta-hṛdayaḥ tataḥ pītvā prajñā-rasam amṛtavat tṛpta-hṛdayo viviktaḥ saṁsaktaṁ viṣaya-kṛpaṇaṁ śocati jagat. If in a world that delights in duality and is at heart distracted by objects, he roves in seclusion, free of duality, a man of action, his heart at peace. Okay, I was going to mention lying on Madhuri Barlow's teaching table. So I've described elsewhere what a lesson with Madhuri was like, but at heart distracted by objects, what I experienced at Madhuri's teaching table was the total opposite of being distracted by objects. So that it's like I heard the birds singing for the first time in my life, because what she had me doing was saying no to the object, to the end of moving a leg. The end in view, she kept asking me to move my leg, and I knew my task was to keep saying no, to stay back in my back, in other words, because if I move my leg without stationing thinking to the fore, the movement of the leg, the big heavy leg, would discomnocorate the back. So I knew my job was to keep sending my knees, because I was lying on her couch, sending the knees up to the ceiling, which is the same direction, knees forwards and away. It's the same as a direction, even if it's a difference in words. It's asking for that separation at the hip joints, especially at the hip joints, at the ankles, at the knees, but a separation that carries on right up to the head and neck. It's everything opening up to let the knees go up to the ceiling. And while that's going on, then at some point you do move the leg. But as you get really into the process, you start to care less about moving the legs seems totally unimportant. So you're not distracted by objects. That's the practical meaning of that. And then his heart at peace. As I say, it's like real peacefulness. It's not a state, but it's that activity of inhibiting and directing, as it's called in Alexander work, was for me the heart being at peace. Then he drinks the essence of wisdom, so prajñā-rasam, the essence of wisdom, or the taste of understanding, equally literally. So it's understanding something. You have to understand for yourself what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is something, I'm not bluffing. I'm absolutely talking about something I've understood. It's been transmitted to me by teachers who understood what they were talking about. And I really understood it in my own thing, which has been sitting in full lotus. I'm giving you here the secret, a real understanding. But you have to make it your own. This is the point. It's like when my friend who stimulated this response expressed to me his doubt. I wasn't having there's no need for anybody to have doubt about what I'm saying. I can give you the confidence. I would like to give you the confidence that Madhuri Barlow gave me. Don't let anybody tell you who you are. That's identity politics and so on. Bullshit. You can send your knees forwards and away. If you're paraplegic in a wheelchair, you can send your knees forwards and away. Everybody can send their knees forwards and away. And everybody can get the confidence that I'm expressing to you now. But nobody can do it for you. That's why I'm making this series of... I'm clarifying what the Buddha said in these series of verses that Asvaghosha has preserved in this particular meter, which is easy to remember. There are 6 verses praising individual effort. So knees forward and away means absolutely nothing unless you actually do what I'm doing now as I'm speaking, sending my knees forwards and away. It's thinking. All it is thinking. I'm not doing anything. It's an undoing. But it's not what people understand as thinking. It's what the Chinese Zen masters called hishiryo. It's not different from thinking. It's different thinking, a different kind of thinking to what we think of as thinking. Knees forwards and away. Knees forwards and away. It gives you a power in the back. It sounds like it's about knees. No, it's really about your hips, what they call the hara in Japanese, the tantien in Chinese. It brings you, gives you power where you need it. Knees forwards and away. I'm talking about vivikte. Roving in seclusion means, in other words, living by sending your knees forwards and away, while sending your knees forwards and away. So that you stay back in your own back. So that's a physical aspect of separation at the hip joints, the knees going forward, the back staying back. But it's got an emotional aspect as well. If you stay back in your back, nothing can touch you. You won't be distracted by objects. Cannot praise highly enough the direction, and it is a direction, not a state, not a thing. It's a happening. It's a release. It's a release, a liberation, a separation. Knees forwards and away. Separately, he sorrows for the clinging, object-needy world. So object-needy world is viṣaya-kṛpaṇaṁ jagat. And the verbal root is Kṛpaṇaṁ comes from the verbal root krip, which means to long for, to mourn, to grieve, or to long for. So again, knees forwards and away is the antidote to kind of emotional longing. You know, it's like if I do the opposite of knees forwards and away, which I can do, I pull my legs into my pelvis, and you can feel me becoming a wimp. Oh, poor old me, you know, mourning for my lost object. So that's what you don't want to be like. Or if you are like that, well, you can welcome that like ice water. Surrender to it and let the opposite happen. Send your knees forwards and away. You come back into your back. It's not a doing, it's a thinking. It's a release. Okay? The two people who will be watching this are usually the two people who generally like my stuff and know what I'm talking about, which is Jean Nyojo-Rat and Georgia Skounis. And they've had the advantage that I've met them in person, in Georgie's case many times, in John's case just the once. But I demonstrated in practice what it actually means to send the knees forwards and away. And for that, the help of an Alexander technique teacher, an experienced one who knows the score, can speed up the process. That's what the teacher's hands can show you the meaning of knees forwards and away and speed up your learning process. But there's no real advantage in finding out quickly. In a sense, the slower you learn it, the better. Knees forwards and away. Knees forwards and away. Knees forwards and away. Marjorie said to me 20 or so years ago, actually she died in 2006, so probably nearly 25 years ago now. We've been working as usual. I think I was still lying on a teaching table, and she sort of stopped and looked at me and said, "It has to be real. It has to be real." Okay. In this world that we're living in, that is at heart distracted by objects, viṣaya-vyagra-hṛdaye, at heart distracted by objects. That's locative. Jagati viṣaya-vyagra-hṛdaye. In a world at heart distracted by objects, and the world is viṣaya-kṛpaṇaṁ jagat. That's accusative, because it's the object of he's sorrowing, he's grieving for the object needy world, the world where the world that longs for objects. In that world, people settle for what's not real. In the financial system, instead of real assets being valued, prices are set by derivatives. And in the world of Zen, people can't be asked to go and do the work that I'm asking you to do now, to go back to the Sanskrit, refer to the dictionary and dig out the real meaning, what the Buddha was actually talking about. It's easier to pick up some sort of help yourselves with Zen book, muck mindfulness, and settle for the superficial thing. No. Knees forwards and away means nothing if you just read it in a book. You won't get free of the obstacle of doubt. You won't enter the stream like that. You have to find out for yourself what I'm talking about. But what I'm talking about is real. Madhuri's words were not in vain. It has to be real, and it is real. Directing the body up, having station thinking to the fore. Why did the Buddha say that? Because if you don't station thinking to the fore, if you don't remember, if you don't understand what you really want to happen, directing the body up will be some kind of, it's like a derivative of the real thing, like an imitation of the real thing, like playing statues, imitating. You know, like you see, and I've seen it on friends on Facebook, you know, who are good at photography. You know, like, you know, you stiffen up and manipulate the light so you look like really impressive. No, fuck that for a game of cards. It's better not to look impressive. It's like in the old Chinese martial arts, you look like a sort of a weak old man. But the power is there from sending your knees forwards and away. The power is there in the dantian, they would say in Chinese. Tanden in Japanese, the hara. You get that power from a separation. And the separation is not a state of two things being apart. It's not a non-empty separation. It's to do with emptiness. It's a direction. Sending the knees forwards and away. It's a release. It's a liberation. In Sanskrit, moksha, an undoing, a coming undone, as a happening. It's not a thing it's not an object we can gain. We gain it as an understanding, as an experience, as a freedom, a freeing, sending the knees forwards and away.